Hello guys, Panzer III here today. This video is going to be part 3 in my adventures in aftermarket tracks on eBay. We will be reviewing Masterclub's metal tracks with resin pins. Now this is not a new brand by any means. They've been making these metal tracks for years now. And they also had, I believe previously, resin tracks, which are quite infamous for being not very good at all. I will link in the corner here Adam Mann's review where he discusses how they are very flashy and brittle and warped and not very good. But that's aside because these are the metal tracks that they release. Now I purchased 4 sets of these from a seller on eBay from Russia, and they did take 4 months to arrive. And also I want to point out something that's not exactly, I don't know, this is part of the review because the review is not only the tracks but also the experience of getting these on eBay. So I ordered, as you can see, 2 sets of 35013, another one here. I've got a 35012, and then I've got a King Tiger set here, which is 35094. What I received is one 35013, and then 2 of this, because even though the box is different, and it's all different here, in this box is this type of track. Well, on the box here you can see these are both 35013, so they should be the same type. And for the curious track enthusiasts, these both should be Type 6 solid horn tracks. You can see there's chevrons there, and they've got like a pinch, and there's a pinch on the guide horn. But you can see these ones are actually smooth on the bottom because this is an earlier type of track, which is like a Type 3.6 hybrid. Doesn't actually have an official name, but so that's actually what I ordered in this box here, which is the 35012. So before we even open the box, you can tell that I imagine this is a Masterclub factory issue when they box them up. These tracks are very similar. They're basically the same except one has chevrons on it and the guide horn's a slightly different shape. But it's kind of a problem when you order a track from 1945 and you get a track from spring 1943 in the box for it. So first I want to review these tracks here, which are the Panzer III types. Specifically these are the 35012. For those curious, it's a unique type of track. There's no official name for it. It's like a modified Type 3 B, so solid guide horn Type 3 that was used in like the spring of 1943 for a very short period. So that out of the way, what you get in the box is a bunch of little metal tracks that come, you know, just in a bag. They are very, very well molded. I have not had to drill out any of the holes on them like you do when you get the Furu model tracks these days. And they're very crisp. I've put together about 100 on one side, and I've got about 100 on the other side almost. And I've currently had like maybe I think 7 track links total that were flashy or mismolded or whatever. So honestly, and they give you enough extras that I just didn't bother with those. I just put them aside and went on with more because they give you about 20 extra track links, and based on the number that were mismolded, about 1/3 of those might have to be discarded. So you can see that they've got holes clean through both sides. There's no pinhead detail molded on like there is on a Furu model track. Got the solid guide horn, and on the bottom you've got that flat face with the little pinches there. So these are correct, they look very good. Also in the bag you get, or in the box, you get 2 bags of resin pins. Sorry, it's kind of shiny there. So you got 2 types. You got one that's like a flat end, which is the pin head, and you got one that has like a ring, and essentially it's the cotter pin. So this is the flat pin head, this is the cotter pin. And what you're supposed to do is you put one of each type into the ends of the track, and then that pins them together, and it also gives you the realistic looking pin head and cotter pin detail. So the way that I've been assembling these is that I just pour out like some of the pins into this little bin here. This is like an IKEA bin, and I only do one type of pin at a time. So this is the cotter pin type. I just pour them in here so I don't lose track of them, because if I put them on my workbench they're going to disappear. So I got them in the little bin here. You can do whatever style you want. And I just grab some of the tracks, and I do this by hand. No tweezers, because if I hold these in tweezers they'll go flying off. you know, your hands are kind of like naturally kind of like, you know, a little sticky, so you can just kind of do that. Maybe I'm really greasy, I don't know. But, and you just push them in. So I just grab up the track pin. You know, it sticks on your finger like that. And then I just pop it in. And honestly, people are always saying whenever you hear reviews of these, like, oh, the pins are fragile, they break, or they're flying everywhere, and so on. And, you know, I've probably broken a dozen pins, considering that I've put together 200 tracks, which is like 400 pins. That's not too bad. Occasionally, like, you can just see that they just slide right in, and then when you kind of get to the end, you have to give them a little push. Now I want to point out here that I am not gluing these pins in place because they friction fit very, very well. I just pop them in, and after I assembled the first length of tracks for my Panzer III base vehicle, so that's 93 per side. After I put them all together, I like took the whole length of track and I like shook it and wiggled it around, trying to make the pins fall out. And I had one pin fall out, probably because it was like, you know, a pin that was a little too narrow, or maybe the holes in the track were a little bit too big at that point. So then I just put a little bit of CA glue on that pin and put it back in place. So what I've been doing is I put together all the tracks in lengths of 10 lengths. So as you can see, I've got 93, which is correct for a Panzer III, roughly. You know, depending on your kit, you might need 94, 95. But I'm starting with this. So I put all of one type of pin in one side. As you can see, they kind of, you know, they're not 100% together because there's no pin in the bottom, but there's pins at the top. So I go through one style of pin, you know, one bag, put them all in one half of the track in lengths of 10. And then I open up the other bag of pins, and then I put the other half back in. So then I put them all in. I don't do one pin, then the other pin, then the other pin, because then I'm going to lose track, or I'm going to start putting the wrong pin in the wrong side. Now what I've done is I put the pin heads on the other side, and then I do the same on all those lengths of 10 track. So I've got, you know, you can easily count, and you know how many you've done if you do them in little groups of 10. And then I take my length of track here, which is all those lengths of 10 now pinned together, and then we just, you know, put the whole thing together at the end. So we get a pin head for the top here. Pop that into place. Sometimes you have to give it a nudge at the end, but they do friction fit very well. And then now we put the cotter pin in the bottom. Perfect. So this is 93 track links, which is appropriate for a Panzer III or a Stug 3. On a Panzer IV, you probably need 99, but keep in mind that there might be a little bit of variation depending on your kit. So I've put together 2 lengths of 93 tracks for my Stug 3, and for those who are curious, I've got a whole bunch of pins left over from each side, probably like 30 to 40 extra pins, and then I've got also a ton of tracks. I said I probably had 20 left over. I think I miscounted because I probably have more like 40. And this is including, or sorry, this is not including, because I've already discarded them, the 7 or so that were, you know, a little bit flashy or broken or whatever. So yeah, you've got leftover for lost tracks, or you can do track armor, spares, whatever. And you've got lots of leftover pins as well. Alright, enough with those wimpy little Panzer III, Panzer IV tracks. Let's now look at a different option. These are King Tiger transport tracks of the late type. There's also an early type, which is a little bit different, and then you've got tons of other King Tiger tracks as well. Now these are a little bit more complicated because they are multiple parts per some links, and it's also different types of links. So what they actually give you is, you've got 2 bags of pins, once again pin head and cotter pin. You've got a bag of these links, which are like the short ones. You've got a bag of these little guys, which go together with these. And then you've got another bag of the links that have the teeth on them. And you also have a spool of wire. And the wire is important because the pins, as you can probably see, they're kind of the same size as they were on the Panzer III. And these track links are quite big. So here's what they look like. And I did not put, as a test, I did not put the wire, the spool of wire in these. And you can see that we have the tracks with the teeth here on either side. And in the middle we've got like that short one, and there's like a little connector bar here. And the thing is, the pins only go so far, so that if you don't have the wire, you can see that this middle guy kind of comes out. It's not going to fall apart necessarily because, you know, it's still attached at the top, but you have to have the wire in there because otherwise that's going to happen. Now they could have just made the pins a little bit longer, I guess, but whatever. Also to note, and this is already happening, the pins on these King Tiger tracks do not friction fit because the holes are bigger. So actually I just noticed this, I've already lost one. And I wonder if I can coax more of these pins to fall out, because you can see that, you know, you've got two pin heads on there. And there you can see he's already coming out a little bit. So, yeah, there we go, he just fell out, so there we go. These are not as easy to work with as the ones from the Panzer III, Panzer IV. But you can see it's coming apart. So I have a different approach to assembling these. I've got three piles. I've got tooth links, short links, connecting bars, and I've got a bunch of pins that I've already cut. So using the spool, now I didn't use the spool they gave me, I used a Friel model leftover spool because it's a little bit kind of more flexible, easier to cut, I guess, but the spool they give you is fine. This is irrelevant. So I've already cut a bunch of lengths of wire from that spool, and I've cut the lengths of wire enough so that they go from one end here to the length, basically the full width of the track minus one pin, because I'm completely neglecting the pin heads that are on the inner face of the track because you can't see them because they go up against the hull side. You can only see the cotter pin because it's what faces outwards. So to skip some time, or to save some time, I'm just completely forgetting half the pins. I'm only putting the cotter pin and where it's visible at the head of the track that faces outwards. So what I do is first I assemble these by hand again. You know, it's a little bit fiddly, especially because these ones have this tiny little connecting bar guy, which you kind of just got to like balance in there with your finger. And then I feed in my wire clipped from the spool, and you're gonna kind of gotta fiddle it in here because of all these interlocking holes. Essentially, you gotta kind of get in the right spot where the wire will go in, and it's gonna give me trouble when I'm on camera. There we go. You force it in, and these tracks are actually now basically pinned together, apart from the end, because remember that wire was too short. Now as for these ones, remember I said that I had about 7 of the Panzer III tracks earlier that were mismolded. I've only had 2 so far, and I've put together 160 links or so. So these obviously, I guess because they're bigger, they're not as fiddly, so they're a little bit easier for them to mold, I guess. But these do take a little bit more time, but they're not really more time than Friel model tracks, because on Friel model tracks you have to do the same thing. You have to cut that spool of wire, and then you got to pin them together, and if you're doing this type of track it's multiple parts, and especially on Friel model tracks now you often have to drill them out, and these do not have to be drilled out because they are very good. Actually, you can see a little bit of flash right there. I'll just slice that off in a minute. But I haven't had any links, apart from those 2 I mentioned earlier, that were really bad. And again, they give you a bunch of extras, so you're not going to be running out due to mismolded tracks. Let's get rid of that flash there, and this is just like really soft metal, so there we go. Just gotta kind of slice it. It'll come off. Next one. So here is 92 track links where I've put that cut spool of wire in the bottom of them, that goes about 2/3 of the way through. And then now what I'm doing is on this end of the track, which is the track that faces outwards, I am now going to put the cotter pins on. Remember, I'm not going to bother with the other type of pin that they're giving you to put in the other side of the track because you can't see it, and I don't want to waste time with that because I've already got the metal wire holding them together. So maybe you can see I've already done up to here. You can see I've got the pin heads out, or the cotter pins, sorry, on, and then here they stop because this is what I've just been doing on the video. Now remember, these pins, the resin pins, will fall out of these tracks because they're bigger. So what I'm actually doing is I'm going to use a little bit of CA glue. I'm using the VMS Flexi 5K CA. I've got a little blob of it on my Chinese takeout cup sauce thing here. I just bought a bulk pack of these, one of the best modeling purchases ever. And I just kind of take my pin, dip it in there a little bit so there's a little blob on the end. You don't need very much. And then I just pop it in. And it's kind of like before, remember you have to make sure that they're all lined up. Sometimes it's a little bit fiddly because the holes don't line up. But then you just pop it in. And they have not been falling out with that little, I guess I'm going to call it like a swab of CA that I'm giving them. So I just kind of dip it in there a little bit, a little blob. And then you pop it into the track link. And again, takes a little bit of time, but it's not that tedious. So with all the cotter pins glued into the outward facing half of the track, then I would put it on the model. I'm not going to do that now because I already have done that. Oops, losing wheels. I've already done that on this side of my King Tiger here. Like I said, 92 tracks per side fits perfectly, which is good because this kit does not have an adjustable idler wheel. And they fit flawless. They look really, really good. And the fact that I didn't put the wheels are going everywhere. The fact I didn't put the pin head on there, I guess you can probably see it here a little bit, but there's going to be like mud on the tracks anyways, so I don't really care too much. You mostly just see this side of the track, which is why I bothered with the cotter pins on there and then didn't bother with the pin heads on the inside. So that's my review of Masterclub metal tracks. As you can see, they are a little bit of work to assemble, but they're not really any more demanding than any of the equivalent metal tracks. The fact that they are completely drilled through already, so there's no drilling required, is excellent. The resin pins, because you have to put, I guess, 2 of them on each track instead of 1 metal wire, might be a little extra time, but you're also not cutting them out. So there's trade-offs there. And I guess on these multiple part tracks, you can see that I just didn't bother with the pin on one side, and it looks fine. It works well. And I had to glue the pins on the King Tiger tracks, and I did not on the Panzer III forced tracks. I really like how the Panzer III, Panzer IV ones went together because no glue, and they look excellent. They flop around perfectly, so they'll have nice sag. And actually the reason why I bought these tracks in the first place is that this set here, which is MTL35012, those unique Type 3.6 hybrids I was talking about, they're not available anywhere else apart from some of the new Mini Art Panzer IV kits. This is a rare track, and this is the only aftermarket solution to get it, so I needed it, and I found it, and they have a ton of extra, like I think they do every single Panzer III, Panzer IV track. They do Type 1 short horn, Type 1, Type 2, Type 3A. They don't do a Type 3 solid horn, but they do this. They do Winterketten, Osketten, they do all the other ones. We've got Type 5A, Type 5B, Type 6, Type 7. They don't do a Type 5C. But basically, if you want an aftermarket Panzer III 4 track, and it's a weird type, Masterclub most likely has it. They're a little bit of work, and they're a little fiddly. I had to use my hand to put everything together, because if I used tweezers, parts would go pinging away. And I've still got, you know, I don't have sausage fingers, and I'm still young, so I can see very well, and I don't have tremors or anything. So for some people, this might be a little bit more difficult. But in my experience, they are very good, and from my video, I hope you can make the decision for yourself. Now, in terms of cost, these were cheaper than Friel model. For me in Canada, they were like about high $40 Canadian each. So they're not expensive or anything. And I'm definitely going to be buying more of them in the future. So hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching. If you're interested in supporting me, please check out my Patreon page, because people who support me on there help me buying paints and products to review, for example, stuff like this. Really helps me out making these videos. If you can't support me, that's fine. I understand, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments, post them on below. I always read through them all. And I will see you guys next time. Very soon I will be doing a video on my King Tiger as well, on making that a 1945 version. So stay tuned for that in the coming months. And take care. Thanks.